Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here for another edition of Shaun Solo, and today we're doing my most disappointing games of 2015. No, like slash worst. It's kind of like my kind of the worst ones, but I don't know. I try not to be overly negative, and I don't think anything really I found anything super offensively bad this year. Nothing too egregious, except for maybe the last few on the list. Like, kind of if you watched my best of video. It was kind of in no particular order except for the last few. The difference here would be the last few I actually think are bad. I would call them the worst games of the year, or there's something about them that I just found too egregious to ignore and it needed some type of righteous addressing or some type of bullshit like that. These kind of lists are fun, and it makes you really think about all the games that you played this year, and I actually have to go look at all the games that came out, a list of the games that came out this year, and try to find all the ones that I played, as a reminder. So many games come out. You play so much stuff in any given year as a gamer, as just or somebody who does this as a hobby, right? Who plays video games. There's just so much shit that comes out every year now. It is really hard to keep up with. And that's that's the weirdest thing to me is when I've looked at, and I also look at a lot of other people's lists while compiling mine also, just to kind of see. I'm kind of curious what the conversation is, but also just to remind myself of what games came out, and was there some a particularly bad game that I found that I played that I forgot about or something like that, so. But this year, I think more than any other year, I saw more diversity this year in people's best of lists, which was really cool. I feel there's more of a uniqueness there. People are kind of moving away from the model of only having AAA games on these lists. I guess the indie scene is big enough now. It's all kind of broadened enough where you can bring in all the different kinds of games that are made on all different levels into these awards, A $10 game is just as valuable as a $60 game in the sense of what a player can get out of it. And I think that's really cool. The only thing I would say was kind of disappointing is I saw a lot of the worst of lists are very uniform. More uniform than I'm accustomed to seeing. And, I don't know, I guess I'm just going to bring this up at the top. Hatred is not on my list. Hatred is on most people's list for worst game of the year. I think it's a really weird game to even include on a list like that. To me, in my opinion, it lacks a complete just awareness of the way that game was marketed, and self-awareness on the part of people of reviewers and whatnot. I think it's weird, that people take that game seriously in any respect. It's not a good game. It's not a terrible game either. It's very mediocre. I played it. But it's one of those things. It's just the great irony is that because of all the negative press, that game was a hugely financially successful for that studio. I don't think they should ever make a Hatred 2 because you can't. Lightning's not going to strike twice. But the amount of ire and the amount of weird social grandstanding that went on when that game was announced is what made that game successful. So to continue to give it coverage is weird to me. Because, I'm the kind of person, I will look at worst of lists, and I will sometimes seek out those games. If they're on sale, I'll play them. Because I'm curious. Not just that, because I'm somewhat of an entertainment masochist, but you learn a lot from things that are bad. And also, sometimes I just disagree with people, also. But I think you learn more from things that you don't like than things you like. You're willing to let a lot go for things you like. And being a critically minded person, as I am, for me it's important to engage stuff on that kind of level. It is for me. Not for everybody. Shouldn't be for everybody, but for me it is. I'm gonna put my phone on silent, sorry. It's important to engage stuff on that kind of level and be fair. Even though this list of games, I found them all disappointing, but there are probably positive things I could say about all of them. I probably even got some enjoyment out of all these, but it's when you sit back and I reflect on it, what is my litmus for this? How do I derive my opinion? Why would I make a list like this? Start asking myself questions like that. It actually took longer to make this list than it took me to do my best of list. The best of list was actually pretty self-explanatory. A lot of those games that were on all the games on that list made an impression on me. and I didn't forget about them. A lot of games on here did not necessarily make the hugest impression. I even had to remind myself that I had played them. So there you go. So like I said, other than the top 3, these are in no particular order. And we're just going to get going. Let's just start. First up is more of a, it's not really a game, although like a full game, but they did sell it as a standalone product, so I included it. Wolfenstein: The Old Blood. Wolfenstein: The New Order was one of my favorite games of 2014. If I had done a list, it would have been in contention. It probably would have been in the top 3 of best games I played in 2015. Mostly just because it came out of left field and it was way better than it had any right to be, and more and better than I expected it to be. So I was really excited for Wolfenstein: The Old Blood, and I was actually not in the best financial situation when that came out, and I somehow justified spending the $20. So I guess I just didn't drink milk that week or something. But I got Wolfenstein: The Old Blood. Incredibly disappointed. It is what they did. There were supposed to be 2 DLC packs for it, and instead of releasing it separately, they just released it as one big piece. It's just like the first half is like all stealth, the second half is all action focused, and it really kind of lays bare what actually made the New Order really good. And to me, what made the New Order really great was the narrative propulsion. That kind of got me through some of the kind of the rote gameplay. So when you take that out, it's kind of boring. It becomes boring. It's a linear corridor shooter. Like there is not a ton of variety in the situations. There's not a ton of different ways you can attack those situations. So if you're just giving something that is 90% gameplay, that's where, in my opinion, it got a little boring. I actually did like a whole 20-minute spiel on it. It's on the channel. Did it around the time it came out, so you can go check that out if you want to. But yeah, so that's right up at the top. Is it being disappointing. Like I said, these are not necessarily bad because it is still a mechanically sound experience. I thought it was boring. Next up is The Order 1886. Now I don't hate this game like other people hate it. I thought it was fine. As a $60 game, it's disappointing if you look at it from a value perspective. It's gorgeous. It's got like an interesting world, but it doesn't do anything with it. The game actually plays out like a prologue. Like this should have been the first half of a bigger game. Because once things actually start getting interesting, the game ends. It's one of those times I really wish this would get a sequel. I really hope it does. I know it's probably not going to, but I would really like it if it got a sequel. But I'm thinking it's probably not going to. Even though I think it's sold okay, but the reviews came in, pretty much just bashed it for being really short. It's about 6 hours. But you can pick it up for $20, even less now, used, so it is worth picking up now, for sure. Even at $20, I would say it's worth it. It's totally worth it. It controls pretty well. It's a pretty decent, third-person, cover-based shooter. It's got great acting. The animation is incredible. It's worth it just for that. But it does have a lot of stuff that hold it back from being kind of, I don't know. I feel like if this had been like I said, the first half of the game, and there was another half after it, even if the gameplay and all that stuff was the same, kind of the same, I think people would have liked it a lot more. I think it's just the story, once it gets interesting, is just over. So there's kind of this anticlimactic feel towards the end of it. It just feels you feel unsatisfied, but when the credits roll, you're kind of damn it, it was just getting good. How can it be over now? What's going on? So hopefully, maybe in some world, we'll get a sequel. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I really hope it happens. But yeah, The Order 1886, I don't hate that game. It's just disappointing. After that, I'm going to talk about Life is Strange. Now, this has actually been on a lot of people's best of lists. And there's part of me that understands why, and there's part of me that doesn't. I think the game starts a lot stronger than it ends. The best parts of this game are not plot-based, I guess. The best parts of this game would be just the idea of living as a teenage girl, kind of, or somebody's idea of what a teenage girl is. It's the romanticized version of being a late teens woman, young woman. Like, it's the idealized version of being a teenager. Much in the same vein as, like, a few years ago, like, Gone Home. Like, they're all like, based, like, all these girls keep journals, and they're all into, like, punk rock, and, like, there's a very specific affectation that all these games kind of carry with them. Life is Strange is just kind of the extension of that. I think it's a cool thing from, like, a development standpoint, like, a standpoint of, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, mechanic-based, like, for these kind of narrative adventure games, I think it's cool. It's probably one of the best controlling ones. Like, I marked King's Quest. The new King's Quest is one of my favorite games of this past year, and it kind of stands similar in that, where it's like a good evolution of kind of what Telltale had begun, rather. Like, what they were doing with their systems is kind of like the natural evolution of that kind of system. So that's cool. But the story gets so fucking, like, stupid. It's like, literally, I mean, this is a fair comparison. It's like the Ashton Kutcher movie the Butterfly Effect levels of stupid, and it's actually almost very similar to that. And also, I'll say this, and if you play the game, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you choose to sacrifice Arcadia Bay, I think you're a fucking monster. I think you're a terrible person. But yeah, so Life is Strange, like, really underwhelming to me. Like, it's like, there's another game on here, maybe I'll just talk about it next. It kind of goes hand in hand with this, but, like, I don't understand some people's, like, litmus for what they find interesting. Like, you tickle somebody's, like, nostalgia bone for, like, oh, this is, like, the life of a teenage girl, and people just just all over it, even though they're incredibly, like, myopic, they're incredibly, like, based in narcissism. It's really weird, and I don't have a problem that they're made, obviously. Like, I play them, I enjoy them to a certain degree. Like, I enjoyed parts of Life is Strange. I was more impressed on a mechanical level than at, like, a plot level. Like, the plot's really not very good, so I don't understand, like, people really making a connection with these characters, honestly. Maybe I'm just out of touch with it. Like, I would say that. Like, I'll be honest. Like, maybe it's more me than the game. But that's what this is. It's a subjective list. I mean, fuck. It's not like anybody else's opinion. It's mine. Anybody else here on camera? No. It's my list. So it's my decision. It's my decision, goddammit. Goddammit. Well, look at his beard. My beard didn't like it either. The protest. What did I beat it? I think I beat it. I finished it like Thanksgiving. That's when I actually got around to beating it. Because by the time I played the third episode of Life is Strange, and I was like, that's fine. I literally waited till 4 and 5 came out, and then it was like a month after that I actually ended up playing it. But it's like, I don't like. It just like confuses me, like, people being into it as much as they are. But, like, it's subjective, so. And I guess the next game I'm kind of going to bring up as well. I actually really debated whether I was going to put this on the list or not. I actually just played this, like, the other day. I haven't had a ton of time to reflect on it, so take it for what it is. Like, it might not be completely fair, and I might retract it later or whatever. So it's kind of a narrative experience, point and click type game. It tells a story. It's Sybil. It's about an hour and a half, 2-hour game. It is about a young girl's online relationships. And it's about, like, kind of what it's like to be a teenager that is very heavily involved in, like, internet lifestyle and culture, like Instant Messenger and stuff like that. There's another game, I think I haven't played it, but I heard about it. I hear is very similar, which is Emily is Away, which is, like, basically like a type of, like, Instant Messenger approximation and appropriation game about, like, what it's like to connect with people online. And actually, the reason why I found Sybil is because I go to this site, Giant Bomb. I really like Giant Bomb. It's a very eclectic kind of group of people. And every year they have guest people do the guest, like, developers and other writers and whatever. They give their best of list for the year. And the woman who created Sybil, which is like, this is like basically like an autobiography, was one of the people that made a list. and she she said you should check out, like, one of her best games of the year was a game called Cobra Squad, which is a game about taking dick pics and sending dick pics to people and talking to people on, like, an instant messenger style, like, dick pic trading website. And so I played that, and she was like, she was saying, like, how important or impressive it is, and that it's, like, this game about, like, online connectivity and, like, how people interact online, and the blurry line between yourself and, like, this created self, this anonymous, like, kind of self that you are online, and and how the truth is kind of in the middle of that. And that's the kind of reading you get if somebody kind of implies that to you. I don't think the game does a very good job of communicating that. I wouldn't put Cobra Squad in, like, one of my worst games of the year, but check out Cobra Squad, because it's fucking ridiculous. So when she did that, and I played Cobra Squad, so I was like, well, she made this, like, kind of autobiographical game. Like, I would like to know more about this kind of person. The kind of person that would read into Cobra Squad in that respect. So I thought, I'll play her game. I'll play Sybil. It's on sale on Steam. It was like $4.50 or something like that. So I decided, like, what the heck? I'll check it out. So me and my wife actually played it. And we both kind of had the same reaction. We were just kind of like, shrugged our shoulders. And the only reason I guess I put it on here, which it made me kind of question why I put it on here. Am I just being, like, reactionary or whatever? It is on a lot of people's best of lists for the year. And people, like, talking about how devastating it is, and, like, this devastating piece of honesty. When to me, it was more just like a average story of, like, your first heartbreak or your first kind of experience with love. But it's done in, like, this way, which I'm, like, she's probably my age, I imagine. And I'm, like, part of that first generation of people that interacted online, like, grew up with it in that way, like, as a child. Like, I grew up with it. So I recognize a lot of the stuff, and I was a little artsy-fartsy and stuff growing up. I still kind of am. I was really into film, I wrote poetry, I wrote short stories, I even, like, dibble-dabbled in, like, live journaling in my late teens, and, like, so it was interesting to, like, kind of, I guess, read this girl's stuff. And that, because she's kind of like somewhat of a narcissist, I guess, or like a psychological, emotional pack rat. She has, like, saved everything she's ever done from the time she was 13, so part of the game is, like, you get to control a desktop, and you can go through her desktop, and you can read all her, like, some of, select entries from her past, some of her IRC and Instant Messenger conversations that she had saved for some reason. So a lot of it's very genuine, and it all comes off very real. It sounds like and reads like a teenager. Like, there's no question in my mind that stuff is for real. Like, that stuff's legit. Like, you can't reproduce that kind of mindset when you're an adult. Like, you can't talk that way anymore. You don't think that way anymore. Even, like, the best writer in the world, I don't know if they could really tap into, like, what's the word I'm looking for? The innocence of, like, those kind of interactions that you have online when you're that age. The way you deal with sexuality, the way you think about sexuality. So, this is not a bad game. Sibyl's not a bad game. It's kind of, I think it's a little overstated in terms of, like, its quality. And I think a lot of people are including it because, I mean, I hate to get into this kind of shit, but quite frankly, like, this girl knows a lot of people in the industry. And this is written, it's an incredibly myopic kind of viewpoint on life. And on your first romance. And I think it speaks to like a middle class, like, white person's experience, teenage, like, online. That's exactly what it speaks to. And there's just something about it that just really was boring. And I guess it's really the only reason it was on my radar is because a lot of people, like, kind of talked it up. So, like I said, like, I might retract this later because I do think there's at least some honesty stuff like there. Even though I think it's really clunky and it's really on the nose and it's really a little bit preachy, it seems like it's very sincere. It's not cynical about what it's talking about. It's just like very amateurish. Honestly, like and I was talking to my wife about this. Like, if this had been a thing that this woman wanted, like the story that this woman, Nina Freeman's her name, if she had wanted to tell this like 10 years ago, she would have just wrote a book. And honestly, like, I think it would have been better served as a book, because I don't think there's much value in a story like this without like some kind of hindsight-esque commentary from yourself, like later in your life. Like, because this is very much like, you can look at her past log entries and stuff and learn about who she was leading up to that point, but then there is like an immediacy. There's like, this is taking place in real time right now, and there is no reflection, and you don't have any choices. You just watch the story unfold, essentially. So I think that's kind of like a missed opportunity in my opinion. Like, it's hard for me I couldn't put myself in her shoes. Well, I guess I could a little bit. Like, you know, even like I had some similarities with her, like, you know, when she was a teenager. Like I said, I brought up the poetry, I brought up short stories, I brought up live journaling. She had an affinity for Final Fantasy games. I loved Final Fantasy games. They were talking about Final Fantasy X too, in the game. So there's things like identifiers that I like understood, and that I even connected with on some level. But like my adult brain and just like was like, yeah, okay. Like, you know, how, like, there's no value in me intellectually at this age without like some kind of commentary on that. Unless I'm supposed to be the one making the commentary, which, did it make me think? It didn't make me think about that experience. It made me think about how I think about things. But it didn't like make me ruminate on my own sexuality or what it's like to communicate with people online. I mean, I just tend to just be more genuine of a person. Like, if you met me, this is exactly how I act. I might be a little bit more animated, honestly. I'm probably a little reserved on cameras sometimes. I make a lot of jokes. I'm kind of a little bit politically incorrect at times. I will make uncomfortable observations. I like to have like real genuine interactions and communication with people. I don't really have much desire to have like fake conversations with people or beat around the bush anymore. I'm almost 30 years old, like 29. Like I just don't have time for that shit anymore. And maybe that's why I have no friends. Except for you. Except for you, good buddy. Alright, so that's Life is Strange with Sybil. But like I said, even though Sybil, I didn't have any expectations, but when I played it, I just, based on what I had kind of read about it, like, I was disappointed. But like, I guess, like, if you can get it for really cheap, I would not say don't play it. And if you like interactive fiction or interactive stories, because I guess this is somewhat autobiographical, I guess it's worth a gander. But I don't know. There's something about it, like, just didn't make me uncomfortable. Some people are like, "Oh, it made me uncomfortable. It's such a deep experience." I was like, "No, not really." Like, I don't know. I mean, there's a creepy idea in that game in the sense that you were like looking at some of the stuff you look at are her childhood photos, and like I guess they're her childhood photos when she was like a mid-teen, 15, 16, and they're like somewhat provocative. So I thought that was weird. I didn't think that was like, I understand that kids take pictures like that, like young women, but I don't understand as almost like when she's my age, like why you would include that like in a, like, I get why you would include it, because it makes it more of a real portrait of like who you were at the time. But then there's just like, there's a creep aspect to it where there's creepy people out there that will get that game and probably whack off to it. But it's supposed to, you know, it just wasn't the embrace of like female sexuality and stuff that I think people kind of are saying it was. Sorry. Anyways, moving on. I'm done with it. Next game is Gauntlet Slayer Edition. Where's the Jester? Where's the Jester, Gauntlet? How can you release a Gauntlet game and not put the fucking Jester in it? So we got this game, PlayStation Plus, about a month ago, I think. I think it was a month ago, right? Like, yeah, it must have been. I don't know. But, my brothers and I, we all played it together. Had a pretty good time. Like, we played it, we beat it a few times. But the thing that kept coming up was just, it made us wish that we had all had Diablo for the consoles. That's really what it made me feel like. I was like, oh, this is just like a stripped down, crappy version of Diablo. Like, I would much rather just play Diablo. And, because it doesn't, like, satisfy on that arcade level that I think, like, the old Gauntlets did. Like, it's somewhere in between. Like, it's somewhat, it's got, like, a complexity, it's almost, like, too much of a complexity, and then not enough complexity. It's really, like, a weird, it doesn't strike the balance very well. And to me, that just left it just really disappointing, and, like, I have no desire to ever play it again. I don't ever want to go back to it. Although, like, well, has nothing to do with disappointing games, but if you want to play a cool, like, console co-op game, check out Magicka 2. It's actually really fun. But Gauntlet Slayer Edition is weird. It's got, like, it's even got microtransaction stuff in it. Like, for some reason, like, I don't really understand why. The unlock system is kind of, like, weak. It's almost like, why bother? Like, it's like, that's what I mean, like, when I said it's like, it's almost got, like, too much shit. But then at the same time, there's not enough shit. And it, honestly, but the biggest takeaway that I can say is that, like, anytime I played the game, all I was thinking to myself was like, damn, I wish I was playing Diablo 3. And I actually had minor expectations for Gauntlet. I grew up playing Gauntlet, actually with my brothers when we were kids. We had Gauntlet: The Dark Legacy for Xbox. And we used to play it all the time. It was like kind of a party game almost, like our party game at our house. And, like, we loved it. And we know every nook and cranny of that game. And then when you play the new one, it is just, like, does not satisfy in any type of regard that, like, the old Gauntlet did. I don't know. The challenge isn't there. Like, it's kind of too easy. And just, you kind of get bored. I mean, you have a lot of fun, but the fun is kind of what you create yourself, in a sense. Like, the fun was derived from just me and my brothers just fucking around. So, like, I enjoyed some of my time with it, but overall, pretty disappointing. It's not a bad game. It's not like it's not totally not worth your time. Like, if you got it during PlayStation Plus when it was free, like I did, hey, you didn't really, like, pay up front for it, right? You paid for PlayStation Plus, but you didn't put down $20 specifically to buy a Gauntlet, so it's okay. It's a real shoulder shrugger. And in that sense, it was disappointing. Okay, the next game. This is really, like, I don't have a ton of AAA games, but this was one that I was really kind of bummed about. I'm surprised I didn't actually do, like, a whole video on it. Just Cause 3. It's a real bummer. I'm really bummed by Just Cause 3. It is, like, a pale imitation of, like, Just Cause 2. Like, it's bigger, in quotes, right? Like, the world is bigger, I guess, but not as satisfying. Like, Just Cause 2, I kind of came to that totally unawares. I did not know what it really was. It was another example of a PlayStation Plus game that kind of snuck up on me. I got into it, loved it. I loved Just Cause 2. I played that for hours. I even bought it on PC. I got the weird multiplayer mod. I've had so much fun playing Just Cause 2 over the past few years. And then Just Cause 3 came out, and I don't know, it came out with kind of little fanfare. And I kind of understand why. It's very lackluster. It's very tedious. The world doesn't feel as inhabited as Just Cause 2 did. Like, I was not doing all the crazy shit that I could do in Just Cause 2. Like, it does not let me kind of have that, like, fun that I'm not supposed to be having. Like, Just Cause 2, it felt like you were constantly just, like, breaking the game. Because the game kind of just opens itself up to you, and it's just like, here's some crazy physics, you can do all this shit, like, have fun. Just Cause 3 is much more, like, structured, like, this is a video game. Here are barriers for entry. You have to do, like, these like, challenge crap to unlock more stuff to make your tethers and stuff more versatile. Like, I hate shit like that. I hate when they have, like, the optional side stuff. They, like, lock off, like, game features behind them. I hate it. I cannot stand that. It is one of the worst trends of 2015. That's happened a few times this year. It's not so much the case here, but a lot of games, the reason they do that is because it's locked behind a paywall, basically. It's like because they want to do microtransactions and shit. And I just think it's complete bullshit. Complete hot bullshit. Getting back to Just Cause 3, it's really boring. I don't even think, like, you know, I'm trying to remember, like, Just Cause 2 just felt more varied, like, even the areas and stuff like that, and the places I would go and the things I would do. Just Cause 3 just got really old really quick. Like, I put probably, like, 16 to 20 hours, like, one weekend, I rented it, and I was done. Like, I never want to play that game again. Like, I enjoyed my time with it, but it just wasn't very good. I don't know. I just thought, well, it's just mediocre. And I did have some expectation for it, because I am a fan of Just Cause 2. I'd rather go back and play Just Cause 2 than play Just Cause 3. Any more Just Cause 3, to be honest with you. Really disappointed. Really disappointed. And it runs like hot garbage on fucking consoles. I've played it for the PS4, and it runs like hot garbage, man. Like, anytime any real explosions are happening and people are shooting you, like, the frame rate drops like crazy, and it actually goes to your detriment, because, like, you can get killed during frame rate drops. There's really not much you can't maneuver around them. Like, so you get stuck. And it's a real bummer. Real detriment to that game. The performance on that game really fucks up what, like, enjoyment you could possibly have with it. But yeah, like, after, like, you know, what I ended up doing for most of the game was, I played probably like halfway through the story, but I ended up just unlocking, like, every area in the game. Like, the entire map was pretty much unlocked. And by the end of it, I was just bored. And I was just done. It gets really tedious. The challenge, and, like, the way the game, like, ramps up difficulty and challenge, I just didn't really care for either. It just doesn't feel very natural. But I don't know, that's just me. Like I said, subjectivity. It's a real thing. And Just Cause 3, which is one of my most disappointing games of the year. Okay, so now we're at the point now, I'm going to be talking about the last 3 games on my list, and these 3 I actually think are basically in descending order, like, bad. I think they're bad games, to one degree or another. And I will get into why, I suppose. What are we at? We're at 32 minutes? Probably another 10 minutes. Probably another 10 minutes or so. Okay. Let's talk about it. Let's do it. Let's get into it. This is probably going to be a little bit contentious for some people. Broken Age. I'm including Broken Age because Broken Age Part 2 came out this year. I did not actually finish the game or really play the whole thing until Part 2 came out. So it was not designed to be an episodic or Part 1, Part 2 game out of the gate, but that's what it became. And, you know, if I had played Part 1 a year before and then played Part 2, I probably wouldn't have such a negative perspective on it. But the fact that I played them back to back does not bode well for that game. Part 1 is generally entertaining. It's fine. It's a Tim Schafer-esque Double Fine type of adventure game, which is what people wanted. That's the whole concept. That's the whole idea behind it. I mean, you know, like, and in that respect, like, the first part was fine. Like, I was kind of on board. It's where Part 2 came in where it got really disappointing, and annoying. And then I have also bringing my awareness of, like, the production. You know, with the Kickstarter, I watched the Double Fine adventure documentary, which, while biased in favor of Double Fine, there's some stuff in between the lines where you just see Tim Schafer is really reckless with his studio, does not know how to manage a company, really overshot with Broken Age for some reason. Like, I mean, Broken Age is incredibly simple. You know, it's got a lot of beautiful art and a lot of beautiful assets, and it looks really nice and stuff, but I'm struggling to figure out, like, why they couldn't have made the game on the budget, or you need to scale back. He had no sense of, like, how to scale a game or anything like that. So all, like, these horror stories that you've heard about Tim Schafer throughout the years, going wildly over budget, not, like, getting along with, like, kind of bigger publishers and stuff like that, missing his dates and shit like that, his benchmark dates, kind of you saw why, because he really he makes games like a he's really immature in a lot of ways, and I guess that's what gives him his sparkle, his magic. But the weird thing about that whole thing is it turned me off to like Double Fine in general. But it really turned me off, like, you know, when like Psychonauts 2 was announced at the Game Awards. I was like, I'm not giving Tim Schafer any fucking money. Like, why would I do that? Like, up front. Like, why am I supporting? I mean, if people want to do that, that's fine. But like, there's no guarantee you're going to get any type of quality game. Honestly, I think Broken Age, like the second half of Broken Age, is complete like garbage mess. They raised a bunch. They tried to raise more money. They used the sales from Part 1 to finish Part 2. And it reuses all the same areas. It just becomes arbitrarily more difficult. It's completely reflexive and reactive to the criticism of Part 1, and not in an elegant or nuanced or smart way. It's just like, well, people thought the puzzles were too easy, so let's just make it go back to the shitty trial and error old school adventure game puzzles. You know, let's reuse all the art assets. Let's make like there's like 2-3 different rooms that are like different areas that you hadn't seen before. Incredibly like disappointing. Like, why? And like I said, if there had been a year gap or a 6-month gap in my playing of Part 1 and Part 2, I might not have felt that same way. But playing them back to back really did not do that game any favors. It's shown an eye on like how poorly thought out and constructed that game was. The fact that they started a Kickstarter. Well, they started a Kickstarter in the sense they were trying to raise like $300,000, and they're like, you know, and then we're going to make a documentary. We're going to show people what it's like to, from the ground up, to make an adventure game. That's cool. Like, I was really excited. I really enjoyed that documentary, even though I do think it's a little too kind to some of the stuff that goes on in it, and I don't think you're getting a full picture sometimes about that studio and how it's run. So that definitely, having that information definitely affects my opinion on Broken Age. So you gotta take that for what it is. And on top of that, I just thought that second half was really mediocre. Honestly, like, if that second half, even if the second half had been better, like, I don't think Broken Age would have ended up on either of my lists. Because I played some damn good adventure games this year, and relative to those adventure games, like, Tim Schafer just doesn't do it for me anymore. Like, I've just played some just better stuff. Like, people are doing way more interesting things than, like, what Tim Schafer's been doing the same thing his entire career, I guess. So, you know, like, I don't, like, his humor is fine. It's not, like, the greatest shit in the world. I like Psychonauts as much as the next person. I haven't played it in 10 years, but, like, I don't know. So, for me, it's just, like, kind of put a damper on the whole Double Fine experience. Although, you know what I did not mention in my best of video, and I probably would have put it on my honorable mention list, was Massive Chalice. It's actually a really entertaining game. And that's Mr. Brad Muir from that studio. Or formerly of that studio. I think he left. But anyways, but yeah, that was a really cool game. But Broken Age 3, disappointing, bordering on bad. Bordering on bad. Now this next one is bad. It is hot garbage. It is a complete waste of money. Do not buy this. It's a Wii U game. It's called Mario Party 10. Mario Party, never great. They've never been great, but they've always been decent enough distractions, right? The mini games were usually okay. You know, I mean, Mario Party 8 was the best one I played, and I came to Mario Party really late. I've played a lot of Mario Party games in the past, like, 3 years. I did not grow up playing these games. My wife grew up playing these games, so she kind of sucked me in. And, you know, like, I had a lot of fun. Like, we played we bought on the Wii Virtual Console stuff like Mario Party 2, the Nintendo 64 game. Actually, I was surprised. Like, we had some drinks, had some fun playing it. Then we ended up getting 8, 9, and 10, so I've played about 4 of them. 10 is by far the worst. The most, like, stripped down. The minigames aren't fun. The Bowser mode sucks. It's, like, completely imbalanced. And I guess you could say that's the point, but come on. Come on. Yeah, I did not like Mario Party 10. I don't know if I'm surprised or not. It's really bad. And we've given it a fair shake. We have tried. Every time we have people come over our house, we play Mario Party 10. And every time, like, we play it for less and less time. That time just gets shorter and shorter. Eventually, we'd probably just end up going back to the Jack Pack or whatever. Play You Don't Know Jack or something like that. Or just stare at each other. Because that's more fun than playing Mario Party 10. Yeah, it's just like really... It's really weird, like how like the mini games, just the most uninspired Mario Party I think I've ever played. Even like the courses and stuff, they're just kind of just It's like whatever. Not even like interesting to look at. It's just a really boring game. And yeah, so that's short but sweet. Short but sweet. Now here's my number one. Now this is a game I've given its ample time. I've tried. I've rented it twice. My sister owns it. I went over Christmas. I played it for like 10 hours. That's Battlefront. Star Wars Battlefront. EA Dice's new Battlefront game. What a shallow, like, crappy game. I don't even have to bring in like all the stupid microtransactions and the fucking DLC. Like, it's not a good game. It's like it is the poster child for like, good enough, I guess. Let's ship it. I mean, it's worse than arcade shooters. It doesn't even like enter, like, to me an arcade shooter you have to at least get up to like Call of Duty. Like, I played Black Ops 3 this year. It's just more Call of Duty. It's unremarkable in that sense, but it works. It's functional. Like, it's fine. If you like Call of Duty games, you will be fine with Black Ops 3. If you like Battlefront games, you're not gonna like Battlefront. Like, it's just, they've taken, like, all this shit out of, like, just the old games, and, like, they don't integrate very well. The only game mode that's really even worth your time is like, the Walker Assault. It's the only one that's really fun. Heroes versus Villains is lame. Like, Supremacy is just whatever. It's just a big battle mode. The maps are kind of border on like uninspired to just like whatever. You just shrug your shoulders. I mean, like, it doesn't help that there's like 12 maps. I think there's 12 maps, but there's only 4 different like planet variations. It kind of just didn't make sense to me. I was like, why? Why doesn't this game mode just have its own like separate map? Why do they all have to be on Endor? Or they all have to be on Hoth? You know, they all have to be on Jakku. Jakku's the new one. They released the DLC. I played that on Christmas. It's just like whatever. Everything about that game just makes me shrug my shoulders. It is a beautiful looking game. But the more you play it like for maybe an hour or two, and you're just bored. Because there's nothing, even like, you know, your upgrades and your weapon selection and all that stuff is just like uninspired and like boring. This is boring. And I did not expect that. Because I almost bought Battlefront, like blind buy it. I almost blind bought it. Because I played the beta, and I was like, okay, this is fine. But just a few more hours of the game itself, you know, once I played for... I rented it, and then I played it for like another, maybe like 6 to 12 hours or something like that. And then I played another 10 hours over Christmas, between Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with my brother, and like, did not dig it at all. Like, it's really bad. And like, even more egregious was like the DLC and how hard they pushed that. They're basically going to split the player base by January. People that have the DLC packs, people that don't, so it's going to make it even worse. Yeah, I have a feeling that's progressively just going to be just splitting people. Unless you're like super into it and you buy the season pass. Like, that's really the only real way to do that. There's another game that kind of did a similar thing, but I think it's a better game, more interesting, is Rainbow Six Siege. Which is surprisingly fun. If I did like a list for most surprising games of the year, Rainbow Six Siege would be on there. I did not expect to like that game. But we all got it for Christmas, and, well, me and my brothers, we got it for Christmas, and have really enjoyed playing it together. You do have to, you know, you have to have voice chat on. It's just not fun without voice chat, but it's really fun. I've had a lot of fun playing that. But anyways, back to Battlefront, because we're not talking about positive, we're not talking about good stuff. Yeah, Battlefront. no bueno, man. I think I don't even know at what price point I would recommend buying this. Just because, like, you know, within a few weeks, they're already splitting the player base with these DLC packs. So, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I guess if you could find it for like $30 and then you bought the DLC, or you get it for $20 and buy the DLC pack, or maybe then it would be worth it. I don't know. It's just like this weird thing because there's no single player component. Like and then it doesn't feel like there's enough stuff. And basically what they've said is like, well, we understand that there's not a ton in box, so we're going to support it both through DLC and free updates. Like the Jakku map, and I can't remember the game mode that came with it, but there's some free updates. Like that was free. And for some people that's going to be fine, that's going to be enough. I think it's cool that they're supporting it after the fact in terms of modes and stuff, and that people have access to that stuff, even if you don't buy the DLC. I think that's great. It's a positive I can say about EA for this year. They're doing that. They've done the same thing with Battlefield 4. Battlefield 4, they have supported the fuck out of that, and it's a great game. It is a better game now than it was 2 years ago when it came out. It is, to me, it's top of the FPS heap. But anyways, beyond that. Yeah. So there's, you know, that's an okay thing, that's a positive thing I can say about Battlefront. But that's about it. Like, all the game modes in the world are not going to make me more interested in the gameplay, or, like, anything like that. I just get really bored. I don't know. And it's crazy, because it's a game where you can conceivably go get, like, 50, 60 kills a match and, like, have 5 deaths. Like, that's not that hard to do in that game. And I'm, like, not the greatest at first-person shooters or third-person shooters. Like, I'm like good enough to have fun and be competitive, but I'm never usually that good. Like, I was racking up shit like crazy when I played Battlefront. Unless you watch the video, I streamed it for like an hour, like when it came out, and like I played really poorly. Usually not that bad. But over Christmas, we were just like, me and my brother just going like 60, 70 kills a match, like crazy, just like fucking insane shit. But yeah, so Battlefront is definitely, that's my number one most disappointing game of the year. I did want it to be good. Like, I don't have the reverence for that series that other people have, but I wanted it to be a good game. I was somewhat excited about it. I think the beta kind of deflated a little bit of that hope, but overall I was like still pretty hot on it, like even after the beta. But yeah, definitely I think a lot of people felt that too, feel that disappointment for it. Even with like this, even though it's like a gorgeous game, like recreates the aesthetic of Star Wars incredibly well. It looks amazing. One of the best like just looking games ever released. Like, its borders on photorealism. And if you have a PC, they got that crazy realism mod that like makes it look even crazier. It looks like you're in some kind of like Saving Private Ryan version of Star Wars. It looks awesome. It's really crazy. But yeah, so those are my most disappointing games of the year. Yeah, that's my list. I don't think there's going to be anything that's super controversial on there either. I think most of that stuff you could see coming from just if you play a lot of games. But yeah, so that's going to do it for me. I'm Shaun, and I will talk to you guys next time I got something to talk about.